Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Daily Grey Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 20th of December, 2023. All right, everyone, let's get into it. So, actually, before we jump into it today, I just wanted to mention that I think there will be a rug fuel tomorrow. So, I think I will miss tomorrow's episode, tomorrow being Thursday, because I am going to a meetup in Melbourne. That will probably go a bit late, so I probably won't have time to record a refuel tomorrow. I should be fine to record one on Friday, so no rug fuel on that front there. But I'm giving you guys fair warning here. Most likely tomorrow there will not be a refuel, but I should be back on Friday there. But anyway, let's jump into the news from the last 24 hours. So we have a tweet here from Terrence, who works on the Prism Ethereum clients, saying Gurley shadow fork for Deneb and Cancun. So yeah, I mean Gurley was shadow forked for essentially Dencun, which is obviously the Deneb and Cancun names there, and you can see on the door of the Explorer, which is the block Explorer here for the shadow fork, everything seems to be running quite nicely. We have participation rate up near 100% basically, and I think all the I don't know how many, I don't know if all the clients are currently on this on the shadow fork right now, but you can see the different combinations here. You know, it's Lighthouse Geth, Nimbus Reth, I mean even Reth's there, which is really cool to see. Lighthouse Nethermind, etc. and etc. So yeah, it seems like the shadow fork has gone quite nicely there. Obviously, this isn't the fork of the actual testnet; it's just a shadow fork. We do these for mainnet as well. But essentially, the fact that it seems to be going nice and smoothly is a good sign. It means that we should still get that fork of the Gurley testnet in early January, and then obviously onto the other testnets, and then shadow forks in between, of course, of mainnet, and then onto actual mainnet deployment, probably still in March, April, as I've mentioned before there. But if you want to go check out this Explorer for yourself, I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But just good progress being made on getting Dencun to mainnet, of course. And as I said to you guys, Dencun isn't the only thing that's happening on the core dev front right now. They're hard at work on Petra, which is the next Ethereum upgrade. I'm hoping that can go live next year as well. Like, let's just say towards the end of next year. But obviously, we have to see what EIPs end up going into it, you know, what the lift is there, what the load is there. But generally, things seem to be moving smoothly. But yeah, you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so Superfizz has been getting together a bunch of people to run an Obol distributed validator client here, or distributed validator stack here, as part of a squad staking initiative. So he was doing this with 9 other people. So he got 9 other people to join him to do a 10-person distributed validator cluster here using Obol's technology. Now, I covered this, I think, a couple of weeks ago when Obol went live, saying that you could have up to 10 people. Obviously, each of you would put in 3.2 ETH, and you'd all run the full nodes and the validator clients on your own machine and be part of this cluster. So this is really awesome to see. It was a really great initiative from Superfizz. I didn't put my hat in the ring because I didn't want to I guess, like, spoil the bunch, so to speak. I wanted Superfizz to be able to recruit people that haven't done a cluster before and maybe haven't even run a validator or a full node before on their own kind of hardware here, because this kind of squad staking here is how we get more people to be validators, right? We get more people to be node operators. And I'm already a node operator. Like, I'm a huge node operator. Like, I'm a power user. So I didn't throw my hat in the ring for this. So, you know, a couple people ask me, it's like, are you going to join Superfizz? I'm like, no, I don't think so, because of the fact that I wanted him to recruit, in particular, new people that hadn't done this before. Now, I don't know if it's named here, basically who joined him. I think maybe Superfizz has a tweet of some of the people that have joined him here, or some tweets about it, but I'm not sure exactly where it is. I mean, you can go to his profile and probably find it there, but it was just a great initiative here, and shows that, yeah, if you don't even have to have 9 other people to do this with. As I showed, you can do this with a minimum of, like, I think 2 or 3 people or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the minimum is. And you can obviously the biggest barrier to entry is still that capital cost. If you do it with 2 people, for example, I don't even know if that's possible. I think it should be possible, but if you do it with 2 people, it would be like 16 ETH each, right? And then you keep going down from there, the more people that you add. But by doing it that way, you all get to run the instance of the validator, and you all get to run a full node, and you all basically get to be a node operator, which is the whole point here, is to allow for the node operator set to become more distributed and more decentralized. Because even if you're sharing a validator instance, you're still running a full node, right? So let's say there's 10 people as part of this cluster. All 10 of those people will be running a full node, and they're all contributing to the decentralization of the Ethereum network. They're all basically doing this, hopefully not in the cloud. I mean, I'm sure some of them will probably do it in the cloud, but hopefully a lot of them are doing it at home as well. But regardless of that, that's the whole point of keeping the validator and full node requirements really low, right? That's the entire point here, because it essentially means that you can offer the ability for anyone to run these things on consumer hardware, right? On hardware that doesn't require you to put it in a data center, it doesn't require you to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on it or even more, and then the running cost as well on top of that. Now, of course, the trade-off in the way that Ethereum is designed is that it doesn't have much capacity on L1, so fees are really high all the time, basically. And this is, I think, what a lot of people miss about blockchains generally, is that you have really two ways of doing it as a layer one. You can either limit yourself, like what Bitcoin and Ethereum has done, in order to maximize the amount of people that can run full nodes, that can run validators. In Ethereum's case, obviously in Bitcoin, it's miners, but let's just say full nodes here, or you can do it like some other chains have done it, which they just crank up the requirements for hardware, and that way they're offering cheaper fees, but it's much more difficult for someone to run a full node or a validator because of that, right? So it's just a trade-off at the end of the day, and obviously Ethereum went with this trade-off because Ethereum is scaling via a layer 2 or a roll-up centric roadmap, where essentially Ethereum as a layer 1 becomes basically a B2B layer, where the businesses are the layer 2s, they buy a block space from Ethereum layer 1 because they can afford it, and then they on-sell that block space in a much cheaper fashion to regular users. So the layer 2s are the user-facing layer. And obviously you guys know this already, but I figured it was worth reiterating, obviously because there's a lot of discussions lately around this and around which model is sustainable or better. I still have 100% confidence that the modular roadmap, the roll-up centric roadmap, is the most sustainable model for the long term. And when I say long term, I'm talking like 5+ years out, guys. I'm talking when we see lots and lots and lots of adoption, whether that be humans or bots, it doesn't matter. I'm just talking lots and lots of activity on these things. I do think the modular roadmap is much more scalable because it can offer not only cheap fees but free fees as well, and it can do it in a much more sustainable way where it doesn't have to subsidize things. Because also on these other chains that offer a lot of space, what ends up happening is that you need a lot of activity on there to make up for the issuance that you're paying out, for the inflationary rewards that you're paying out to people that are running the powerful hardware to run the network, right? So it's just a trade-off space here. And I don't like when people make this binary where they say one thing's better than the other and state it as fact. Like, I state my beliefs, right? I believe the modular roadmap is much more sustainable over the long term. I believe it is the better approach, but I'm not going to state that as a fact. I could be completely wrong on this, right? I mean, obviously I don't think I am, but I could be completely wrong on this. And then you have people in the other camp who think that the modular roadmap is broken, that it's fragments liquidity and it's not interoperable, blah blah blah, right? It's not sustainable. Which I believe is not the right way to think about these things, because at the end of the day, I do believe it's just an engineering problem to be solved, the interoperability issue and also the fragmentation issue. I do think that is a very short-term issue in the grand scheme of things that will get solved, and I do think some of these other chains that are trying to scale all at layer 1 will end up pivoting to a more modular roadmap, just because it makes much more sense, not just from a scalability and sustainability perspective, but also from a social perspective, and also from an experimentation perspective. Because I think what a lot of people forget is that the layer 2 roadmap allows Ethereum to be a much more experimental ecosystem than it otherwise would. Like, imagine if we were just scaling layer 1, well, then everyone would be at the behest of the layer 1 roadmap, right? It would be at the behest of how slow layer 1 moves to upgrade. People would only be able to use the EVM. Whereas with the layer 2 roadmap, these layer 2s can move as fast or slow as they want. They can use any technology that they want. They don't have to use just the EVM. Yes, a lot of them are EVM right now, but there are plenty of other ones that aren't EVM that are online and coming online soon. Obviously, Starknet has been online for quite a while now. And then you have others. I mentioned Fluent, which is doing WASM stuff. Obviously, Eclipse, which is bringing Solana's virtual machine over to Ethereum. So you wouldn't get that if we didn't have the rollup centric or L2 roadmap, right? You wouldn't be able, you wouldn't get that experimentation there. And that, to me, is Ethereum's strength, is that it's always been a really great experimentation playground, a really great place where all these new and innovative ideas are born out of. And that's been Ethereum's strength. And it continues to be Ethereum's strength with the layer 2 roadmap. But yeah, I went on a bit of a rant there about layer 2s. I think it is very topical lately to talk about these sorts of stuff because I think a lot of people are having doubts about Ethereum's modular roadmap and whether it's actually going to be as good as we think it is. And I'm not one of those people, definitely not one of those people who are having doubts about that. I do think that it's going to be, and it is amazing as it exists today, but I do think it's going to get exponentially better from here. And I do think that there is room for definitely, other attempts and other kind of, I guess, like approaches here. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like sometimes I have to explain to people that I'm not playing the, short term 2-3 year game here. I'm playing like the 10+ year game. Whenever I talk about these things and I say the term long term, I'm talking at least minimum 5 years, and all the way out to 10+ years, because I am only interested in supporting something that I can be a supporter of for, decades to come. I don't like changing things just because the thesis didn't work out in the short term, or the thesis is taking longer to play out. And with Ethereum, it's also become a kind of habit for me too, because with Ethereum, it's taken long to do everything. I mean, proof of stake was promised in 2017, and then it took until 2020 for it to happen, right? So I'm used to waiting for things in Ethereum, but up until now, Ethereum has been able to deliver on all of its promises, and obviously there's a lot more promises that get made, and we still have to deliver on those, but I've never been more confident in the ability for the Ethereum ecosystem to deliver on that. And that is the heart of why I'm bullish on Ethereum. And people are bullish on other ecosystems because they think they can deliver as well. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that gets lost in the, like playground or nut house that is crypto Twitter, and other kind of social media platforms. But anyway, enough on that. I'm going to move on from that one there. So the latest ETH ecosystem allocation update is out. So this is for Q3, and I cover these whenever they come out each quarter, and it's basically the Ethereum Foundation giving away a bunch of money to a bunch of projects. You can go check out all the projects that have been supported. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, but the total amount that was given out for Q3 was $9 million. It is usually around like the 9 to the $12 million mark here, and there are so many different projects supported here. You can see all from different categories such as community and education, consensus layer, ZK proof, stuff like that. But if you want to go check out all those projects for yourself, you can. I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to do so there. All right, so speaking before about running, I guess, like full nodes and validators on lower powered hardware, the Ethereum on ARM Twitter account is one of my favorites because it's always showcasing just how low powered you can go with this stuff. So you can see here, they've tweeted, this is a $189 ARM 64 board running 2 Ethereum L1 plus L2 synced nodes at the same time. Yes, both L1 and L2 nodes. So they're running Geth and Nimbus on L1 and Optimism or OP mainnet and Base's clients on L2. So you can run full archive staking L2 nodes on consumer hardware. This was Ethereum's goal since day zero. And that really, that really encapsulates it, right? This has been Ethereum's goal since day zero. It's been something that we've been steadfast in not compromising on. And it really is at the heart of what makes a blockchain special and at the heart of what actually gives blockchain its value, in my opinion. I know other people have different opinions on this, but really, at the end of the day, when you're building a blockchain and when you're building something that's trying to be truly decentralized, you want it to be as easy for someone to verify the rules of the system as possible. Because if they don't have that ability, they don't have to verify. It's not like I'm saying that every user needs to run a full node. And obviously with light clients down the line, this is going to be a lot better overall, but light clients still rely on full nodes. Obviously we need people running full nodes at home to keep the network decentralized. But really, if you're not able to run your own full node, that means that you're not able to verify the rules of the system for yourself, which means you're de facto trusting someone else to verify those rules for you, which in the most extreme case means that essentially you're just reverting back to what we have today. Because today in the centralized ecosystems, especially within the centralized financial system, you're literally trusting that system, including everything that goes into it, like the governments and the regulatory bodies. You're trusting all of them to essentially tell you the truth about what's going on, not hide from you what's going on. And we've seen this fail time and time and time again. That's the whole reason crypto is a thing. It's the whole reason Bitcoin was invented, to basically make an open source, transparent, verifiable by the everyday person financial system here. And yes, it comes with trade-offs. Like, as I said, like the fees on layer one are going to be high because of this, right? There's just a trade-off that exists here. But I think that trade-off is worth it as long as we can scale via other means, which we are doing via layer twos. But yeah, this has always been the kind of at the heart of it for me. If you can't verify the rules of the system for yourself, then you are de facto trusting someone else to verify those rules. And as I said, I don't expect everyone to run their own full node or anything like that, but the ability for someone to do that is the most important important thing. And as you can see here, you can do it on very, very cheap hardware still. And as I've said before, this is running full nodes. This is not running validators. Obviously, to run a validator, it takes an ETH, to run a solo validator, you have to put up ETH, but to run a full node is free. All you need is hardware and an internet connection and obviously electricity, right? But in terms of a capital requirement, you don't need any ETH to do it. You don't need to put up anything as collateral. You just need to run it on your, basically your existing hardware, on your home PC, on your home laptop, whatever it is. And yeah, I mean, the other kicker is it needs to be online 24/7 if you want to stay in sync with the network. But in this day and age when we have high-speed internet everywhere, well, not everywhere, but in a lot of places around the world, of course, and also this day and age where hardware is really, really, really cheap. It's very easy, and you can get like these little boxes that just sit on your desk. It's really easy to run these things and just keep them running. And the cool thing about running your own full node is that you can actually use it. Not only can you verify the rules of the chain, you can actually use it as your own RPC, which means you don't have to trust a third-party RPC now, and you can just use your own and relay your own transactions to the network. So that really is at the heart of what makes Ethereum really special and what makes blockchains special in general here. All right, speaking of Layer 2, we've got a bunch of things to talk about with regards to them today. So Optimism published a blog post all about their superchain ecosystem. So they said here, in the title of the post is Preparing Optimism for the Superchain Future. Now, for those of you who need a refresher on what the superchain is, it's basically the concept of many, many, many different chains built on the OP stack, many different rollups, basically being able to interconnect with each other as part of one big superchain. So essentially a chain of chains of chains, because Ethereum is a chain of chains, which are the layer 2s, and then the super chains are the chain of chains, right? So it's chains all the way down, really. But obviously the benefits of this are interoperability, removal of the fragmentation, keeping people in one ecosystem as well without fragmenting the attention too. And there's a few of these kind of super chain things happening right now. Obviously, OP Stack, then you have Polygon CDK, ZK Sync has their own thing going on. And I do think that these things are going to be the ecosystems that get the most usage in the L2 space, but there's going to be ones that aren't part of any of the super chains, like, for example, Starknet and Scroll and stuff like that, but they're going to still be able to interoperate with these other ecosystems through other means as well. But anyway, you can go check out this blog post from Optimism. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so we have an update here from Rachel, who works at Off-Chain Labs on Arbitrum Stylus. So she says here, the next Stylus testnet cuts fees by another 2.5x. Cryptography is 2 to 4 times cheaper. VM acceleration is 3 times cheaper, and 428 ADDs for every 1 EVM ADD, and we're not done yet. And she says here, as a test, I ran an unoptimized library against our Stylus VM. It's over 5.3 times cheaper end-to-end than its Solidity equivalent, and even better if used as a library, and it's trivial to deploy. Stylus is still in alpha, just wait until we reach mainnet. So just the refresher, Stylus is basically Arbitrum's answer for people to build using basically any language they want other than Solidity and compile that down to the EVM. So the cool thing about that is, as Rachel said here, they can lower the fees a lot more than what they currently have. And this is true for L2s across the board. They're going to be able to lower the fees so much lower than what they are right now. Not obviously 4844 is coming as well, and like full Danksharding eventually, but the L2s themselves can keep lowering their own fees through various different means here. And they're going to keep doing it, guys. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, fees are a race to the bottom, really. When you're building something to scale a blockchain, right, whether it's as a monolithic blockchain or as a modular one, when you're building something to scale, the fees are always going to be a race to the bottom. And as I've mentioned before, the end game is really that users don't even see fees at all, because the fees are so cheap that the apps and the chains are subsidizing it, right? They're still paying the fees down to Ethereum L1, right, if they're an L2, but they're just so cheap on a per user basis that the chains are happy to subsidize it. The funny thing is people don't think about it in these terms very often, but when you think about it on like a per user basis, let's say a per user fee is extremely cheap on these L2s to the point that it's free, but then you have a lot of these kind of transactions paying these fees being done. Let's just say you have millions of transactions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of these transactions done each day. Well, then you basically have the volume of fees be really high, but the per user fee is really low. Now, of course, this is not an L2 exclusive thing. This is how the monolithic blockchains plan to kind of like scale out their ecosystem, right? They want to keep fees, as cheap as possible, but also an aggregate in fees is going to be really high, which allows the network to become sustainable. But I feel like layer 2s have a much better well, I know, I believe, I don't just feel it, I believe that layer 2s have a much easier path to doing this and a much more sustainable path to doing this than the monolithic L1s, but remains to be seen how that all plays out over the next few years. We'll just have to wait and see. But great to see that, the cost reductions are continuing to come here for Stylus, and I can't wait for Stylus to reach mainnet. All right, so liquidity fragmentation on L2s has been a big narrative over the past few months. Whether people are saying it because they're just trying to flood Ethereum, or whether people are actually trying to, work on the issues themselves, generally it's accepted that it is a short to medium term issue that will be solved. And one of the ways it's going to be solved is detailed here by Ericsson in his tweet thread today, where he says, in this thread, we will explore based booster rollups, BBRs, and how they solve fragmentation. And this is something that Tycho has come up with, and Ericsson is actually a community advocate at Tycho. And they posted about this all the way back in April, I believe, but on the ETH Research Forum. And there's also some Tycho stuff that I linked in a previous refill, but you can go to Tycho's page and check that out there. But this thread does a great job of summarizing how BBRs will actually solve fragmentation here. So you can go check out the thread for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But the TLDR is basically that the rollups get to use the L1 itself. So basically, you can say here, Ericsson defines a boosted rollup is that you can think of them as an extension of the L1 itself. The boosted rollup can interface with apps on the L1, and any rollup added can add a booster functionality, but it makes the most sense to add it to based rollups like Tycho. And then he continues on in his thread about what the kind of benefits are of all of this and how things can interoperate. And the TLDRs, you can interact with all your favorite dApps regardless of the rollup you're using. And this is what it looks like visualized as well. You have rollup A and rollup B. They're using the same based sequencer here, and obviously that goes to L1, and then everything is interoperable there. So this is just one way that we can kind of unfragment, I should say, things, and kind of like bring liquidity unification for L2s. But there are multiple different ways. I've highlighted Polygon's way of doing things. There's shared sequences. There's kind of a few other ways out there as well that I think I've highlighted on the review before. So as I said, guys, this is a short to medium term issue. This is not a long term issue, and it's going to get solved because it is obviously an issue. The teams want to solve it, and it doesn't require, from my knowledge, any changes to L1 to solve this issue. So it can happen a lot faster than it otherwise would, because if you're trying to get a change into L1, that obviously takes a while. I mean, by the time Denkun goes live, it'll be almost a year since Shapella went live, when we were supposed to, deliver it in like 6 months after Shapella. But that obviously didn't happen. But that's what I mean by like L1 just moving a lot slower than L2s here. But yeah, you can go check out Ericsson's thread. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, obviously there's been a lot of noise on, I guess, social media lately about just like crap, really. I mean, it really is noise. It's not signal at all. But Jesse Pollack put out a great like counter, narrative to this today, where he said, for what it's worth, all the people... so Jesse Pollack is the lead on Base, by the way, for those of you who don't know. But he said, for what it's worth, all the people I work with are talking about making smart wallets usable, driving average L2 fees to less than a cent, bringing L2s to stage 2 decentralization, enabling L2 interoperability for seamless UX, and making it dead simple to build on an L2. And then, of course, he says, ignore the noise, just build. I think what ends up happening a lot in this ecosystem is that people pigeonhole themselves into certain communities, right? So you'll pigeonhole yourself into like crypto Twitter, or you'll pigeonhole yourself into crypto subreddits, or you'll pigeonhole yourself into what people are saying on YouTube. And you don't kind of get that cross-sectional view of the entire ecosystem. And I'm guilty of this myself as well. I spend a lot of time on Twitter, even though I it's kind of funny how much time I spend on Twitter, even though I hate like a lot of the time I spend on there because it's just so much noise. But at the same time, like I can sometimes pigeonhole myself into things as well. Or maybe you just sit on Discord all the time and you're in one community and it becomes a kind of like echo chamber of sorts too. And I don't necessarily think echo chambers are the worst thing in the world, but there is that kind of like those negative externalities of them, right? Where essentially, if you're only paying attention to, for example, crypto Twitter, or most of the stuff on there has nothing to do with what's being built. It's just like a lot of speculative stuff, a lot of degen behavior. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're interested in following along with like the builder developments, if you're interested in following along what's happening on the fundamental level and from the long-term thinkers, then you're not necessarily going to get that from crypto Twitter. I mean, I know that obviously I cover a lot of things on the Refuel. I mean, most of the stuff I cover on the Refuel is tweets, and it's got nothing to do with speculation, but that's because I curate this. Like, I spend so much time on Twitter because I have to go through and curate this. Like, the tabs that you see is the result of hours and hours and hours worth of curation here, guys. Like, I don't just like find these things. I mean, maybe there's a more efficient way to do it, but I don't just find these things within 5 minutes. I have to go through it all, and then I have to decide which ones I want to cover, so, so on and so forth, right? But like, all this is to say is that, like, if you actually talk to the actual builders and you actually talk to people in real life, the tune is just so different to something like crypto Twitter or even like a subreddit. I know people who spend all of their time exclusively on the cryptocurrency subreddit, which I would actually argue is worse than Twitter for the signal to noise ratio, because it's just, again, shilling of random things. I mean, I don't even know what their favorite coin is right now, but they always have a new favorite coin, like flavor of the month sort of thing. And so does crypto Twitter, mind you, right? But really, if you want to have the most intellectual discourse in this space, you talk to the actual builders, right? You talk to people with a long-term mindset. You don't go talking to the speculators. Most of the speculators do not care about this stuff. They only care about making money, which, again, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you care more about more than making money, then why are you going to go talk to the DJ and speculators about that, right? It's like me going to talk to them about the tech, saying, hey guys, L2s are really cool, and I'm really looking forward to 4844 going live. And then they're just going to look at me with these puzzled eyes, being like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? I'm going and DJing on this new dog coin. Like, I don't care about that, right? And sometimes they'll care about it if it's part of their trade, right? They'll obviously shill it because it's part of the narrative. But a lot of the time, they don't even know what they're talking about. They're like, oh yeah, 4844 is coming. That means, it's going to be bullish for ETH and L2 tokens. And they don't even know what 4844 is. It just becomes a narrative, right? So I guess, like, the point of what I'm trying to say here is when, like, looking at these sorts of things, don't pigeonhole yourself. Try to expand your horizons here. Try to not kind of just focus on one thing, and try to spend time on different kind of platforms as well. And if something's becoming too noisy for you, probably a good idea to ignore that platform, or at least reduce your time on it. Obviously, I need to follow my own advice when it comes to this, because I've been someone who complains about crypto Twitter all the time, but spends a lot of time on it. But I think if it wasn't for the Refuel, I probably would have quit crypto Twitter by now. I think I've said that a few times. But maybe, at some point in the future, I'm going to just, like, hire someone to collect all the tweets for me and all the content for me, and I'll still do the Refuel, but I just won't expose myself to Twitter anymore. Anyway, going to leave that one at that. Got a couple more things to get through. This Twitter account, which I thought was quite funny, it's called 13-year-old VC in NYC, works with Eigenlayer here. Just put together a really really great tweet summary of Eigenlayer. So if you've been wondering what Eigenlayer exactly is, what people are excited about it, how it actually works from a TLDR fashion, and a lot of the projects building on it as well, you should definitely go check out this tweet. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. It just does a really, really great job of summarizing it all, and basically summarizes my bull case for Eigenlayer as well. So you can go check that out. We'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. I just wanted to give a shout out here to this blog post from Jonathan Meyer talking about the Ether. And this is, I guess, like a discussion around the language and usage and style for Ethereum, and a case to refer to the broader ecosystem more commonly as the Ether in mainstream context. So I'll link this in the YouTube description below, but it is an interesting kind of exploration of language within the Ethereum ecosystem and how we can evolve it to be more in line with what, the Ethereum ecosystem believes and principles and things like that. So you definitely go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, I've saved the best for last for today's episode, and I'm going to leave you guys with a bullish rant before I rug you on tomorrow's episode. But I put out this tweet that I spoke about on yesterday's Refuel. Basically, I titled it, "A Modest Bull Case for Ethereum in 2024." Now, this tweet basically just goes through all of the things that, or not all of them, but like some of the things that I'm most excited about in 2024, and some of the narratives that I think people are going to latch onto when it comes to Ethereum and ETH in 2024. And I want to go through each of them, each dot point here, and just speak to a little bit of them, but you can go check out the tweet for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But basically, the first point is the most obvious one here. We have a possible spot ETH ETF being approved in May, because May is the final deadline for a couple of the applications that have been put forward there. Obviously, like, as I've said, the narrative of the ETF is stronger than the reality, and I think right now the market is actually, when it comes to like trading Bitcoin, the market right now is going sideways because there's a lot of uncertainty around whether the ETF approvals is going to be a sell the news event or not. Even though it's bullish still, there's just concern around that in terms of the short term. But leading up to it, BTC went from 25K to 45K, right? So people will be speculating on that. And if we're looking at it on that for ETH, so if we're looking at it from a pure speculative perspective, that should be, I mean, it's not a guarantee, but it should be good for ETH. And I think that its chances of it getting approved are quite high. I don't agree with people who say that the chance that it's a 0% chance. I do believe it's quite high here, but we're just going to have to see. Wait and see what happens there. Now, the second thing is Eigenlayer going live, or restaking going live, and unlocking a major new primitive for Ethereum. Now, I spoke about this yesterday, so I'm not going to rehash all of my points from yesterday, but I do think that's going to bring a ton of new interest and demand into the Ethereum ecosystem and into ETH as an asset. And then, of course, we have the continued ETH supply decrease from the free burn, which is already at its lowest level since the merge. And, I mean, I'm sure you guys have noticed gas fees on L1 have just been up only lately. I mean, both from L2s, obviously getting more usage and paying more in fees to L1, but also just L1 getting its own usage. Like, people are still doing things on L1. A lot of inscription stuff happening, those sorts of things. But yeah, we're at the lowest level in terms of ETH supply since the merge. And that's, I mean, if we are heading into a bull market, right, that's just going to get lower and lower. And that, I think, is a really, really great narrative, especially for ETH value accrual, and something that plays out definitely over the longer term here. And then, of course, we have the Denkun upgrade going live in March and April with EIP 4844. That's going to lower L2 gas costs. I've spoken about that endless amount of times, so I'm not going to rehash it there. Increased L2 adoption across the boards. Activity is already at all-time highs, as I showed the other day. Non-EVMs, non-EVM L2s like Eclipse and Fluent going live, which brings in new types of apps and developers. On top of that, I would actually say Arbitrum Stylus going live as well, hopefully next year. And it just brings in more developers and new types of apps into the ecosystem. The L2 ecosystem led by Immutable will become the home of crypto gaming. There is really no second best right now to Immutable when it comes to games. They just have like this powerhouse of games building on their platform. Now, this is to say nothing about how successful each of the individual games are going to be, but if you're actually going to bet on a gaming ecosystem, you would bet on Immutable. And that's not me saying to go buy the IMX token. You guys know I'm an investor in Immutable, and I'm not telling you to go buy the token or anything like that. But if you wanted to say or look at which gaming ecosystem within crypto is going to be the most successful, I think Immutable is by far the leader right now, because they've just been relentlessly building on this for years now, and they have a lot of integrations, a lot of games on there. So I think that's going to be a huge thing next year. Major Ethereum projects will do their airdrops and attract a lot of fresh capital because of it. I've dropped these kind of names before, so I'm not going to rehash them here. The wallet UX will continue to improve at a rapid pace and onboard millions of new users to the Ethereum ecosystem. Guys, if you haven't used any other wallet besides MetaMask, please go use one of the other wallets. I can suggest to you Tahoe, Rainbow, Rabby, and even Coinbase Wallet. I think Coinbase Wallet's fine, but I out of the other ones, I think Rabby is probably my favorite right now for desktop especially. Rainbow is probably my favorite mobile wallet, and MetaMask. I mean, I'm still using it I use all of these as pass-throughs, but I'm still using it because I'm just used to it, right? But yeah, if you haven't tried anything but MetaMask, please go try the other ones. They're so much better. I'm not trying to shit on MetaMask here, but these other ones are just so much better from so many different perspectives. And then the last point here was that real-world assets will continue to grow and bring more of the old-world financial products on-chain. And I believe that's a trend that will continue on Ethereum L1 more than L2, because really when you're talking about costs here, if you're bringing on chain a lot of these assets, like a huge volume of these assets, the gas costs are negligible to you. So yeah, anyway, that's a tweet. I'll link that in the YouTube description below for you to check out, but that's just some of the things that I think are going to be main bullish catalysts for Ethereum and ETH heading into 2024. But then I also said in the tweet, just to round this out, I said, funny enough, even though Ethereum has all of these catalysts and more, the most bullish thing for ETH is still just for ETH to go up. Any experienced crypto participant knows that narrative follows price, and when ETH starts outperforming, suddenly all of these issues that people have with Ethereum will disappear. So really, it becomes a self-reinforcing thing, right? These narratives lead to ETH going up. ETH going up leads to these narratives getting stronger, right? And then it just kind of feedback loops on itself until eventually we blow off top and go into another bear market, right? This is just the way things work in crypto. But anyway, you can go read the full tweet for yourself. We'll link it in the YouTube description below. But I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the newsletter. Join the Discord channel. And I'll catch you all on Friday. Thanks, everyone.